Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is a new year. Welcome to 2023 on the channel. We've already done 2 videos this year, but they were all focused on 2022 and rounding up the year. So this is the official first video for 2023, the first album reaction we have on the channel. It has been in the making for a while. I've obviously been, you know, dealing with the lead up to Christmas, and then I got into the roundup videos for 2022. So this one's been on delay for a while, but I believe it will be a good way to start the year because Vola is a band that I am absolutely familiar with. I have heard, I would say, 50% of the tracks off of Witness. So for anyone who's blown me up about doing Witness instead of Inmazes, I have heard, you know, around 50% of the tracks, and Straight Lines was actually one of these tracks that I was massively into in 2021. There's some very catchy tracks on the album. The only thing that people are saying to me about this album in particular is the production might be slightly off-putting to me, because obviously I've had my thoughts on different albums that people have been really big on, and the production is kind of like being the only turn off for me with the album. So I'm going to do my best to try and avoid being overcritical about the production on this. I have actually heard Stray the Skies, which is the second track on this, and I got massive Meshuggah vibes off it. So yeah, I'm excited to check this one out, guys. Like I said, I'm not going to be overcritical on the production. I'm just going to enjoy the album for what it is. Hopefully, you know, there's a lot more bangers on the album than just Stray the Skies. I'm sure there is, because this one did win the latest, well, I wouldn't say is it the latest Patreon poll? It was like literally on like the 20th of December that I put that out, but obviously it's been so long since I've been able to get out a video because of all the other things that I've already discussed. So guys, Vola are a Danish band. I believe they formed in Copenhagen in 2006 from what I can see on Wikipedia. Again, not the most accurate source. Again, I am familiar with them to a certain extent. This is their older work. I have heard Straight the Skies. So without any further ado, lads, we're not going to keep waffling on. We're going to jump in. This is the full album reaction to Inmazes by Vola, their 2016 album, which is their second most recent album. Drop a like in this video before we get into it, lads, and let's go. So, knowing that this is going into Straight Skies is kind of disappointing for me, because obviously I know how good that song is and I'd love to just be experiencing this for the first time. But before we do get into that, I just want to make the obvious comparison, which I've already said, to that Genty Meshuggah sound. Like, I mean, I think Straight Skies is a really good example. I remember when I was streaming back in the day, that was actually when I got suggested to listen to Straight Skies, because I was kind of like listening to some Meshuggah at the time, and people were just like, yeah, try this. And obviously that song absolutely slaps. So I remember that being my initial impression, but then I had heard more of Witness, and within Witness you obviously get to witness the melody that Vola are capable of, and they have like a really unique, what's the word I'm looking for? They have a really unique delivery. It's like they open up this pocket of space and then it kind of glides back into the chuggier gent sound. So even at the start, I was a little bit like, it reminded me of some of the Meshuggah albums really heavily, not from like the overall tone of the guitars, but like the weird, like awkward kind of headbanging, trying to figure out the signature. But towards the end, it got a little bit more familiar, because I think the way the guitars were bending in and out almost made it more complicated than it actually is. Like the drumming was fairly 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 when I was following the snare pattern at the end. But the guitars, because they're so like wow 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 wow, like the guitars were awkward. But at the start, I'm pretty sure the drumming was off. Like it was an awkward time signature for the drumming. So let me just hear this one more time before we go into Straight Skies, and we'll just enjoy that one. That's like scrambling my brain, because I can't even count it, because the guitars are so like, it keeps cutting across my focus, and then obviously the vocals layered on top of that as well. So it's very unique in that sense, because a lot of the sounds that I would have heard like this before would have obviously had Jens from Meshuggah layered over it. So you're kind of almost expecting that rougher vocal tone to be over that, but it's obviously the more singing style, which is nice as well, because obviously I love melody. I probably, well, it's no surprise to anyone that I much prefer the softer vocal side of metal, especially when it can kind of blend in and out of the the harsher vocal techniques as well. So yeah, we'll continue on, but that was a good intro into their older sound. The production sounds fine, to be honest. I just seen one comment like about 2 hours ago that was like about the production, so I was kind of like a little bit worried, but I know what this next track sounds like as well, so it's... Yeah, this... I actually forgot there was a lot of melody in this. I was kind of thinking, I was remembering this part that's going to follow here. I think it's actually the guitars that are making the overall sound so awkward. I love that like almost orchestra sound. Is that what it is? The strings.
I am silent but breathing heavily. I try to make sense of my skin's complexity.
I've never actually read the lyrics, so this is probably a good point to kind of get into them a little bit more. I know the chorus, obviously, but... the way this comes back into the guitars as well. Yeah, production sounds A1. Granted, maybe not as like thick as Witness or well-rounded, but it's fine. I love how that just opens the song back up again. Sometimes it's just the subtle touches in songs that just can add so much to it, makes it so memorable, you know? Yeah, this part here where the guitars just come back in, just, oh. Yeah, I really wish this was my first reaction to this track, lads, for the video, but unfortunately not. You can blame whoever it was that suggested this track on stream, like literally years ago at this point. If that was you, or you remember if you were at that stream, let me know in the comments, because that's OG status acquired. Also, I'm wearing one of the most proggy scarves you could possibly wear for this kind of a video, so maybe I'll make it a thing before we're back into the summer. Or I'll just keep it just to be the extra prog snob. Is this even prog? I guess it is, yeah. Like genty prog. I'm pretty sure from here on out, the rest of the album is all like first time hearing it, so let's see what we have. Gotta say, I know I've said it already, but the subtle nuance in some of the guitar work in this is really just giving me massive Sugar vibes. Yeah, it's that. Yeah, that has my Sugar written all over that. Except my Sugar just play with it for like fucking bars upon bars upon bars. just having a look here at the current member lineup, and it looks like they've always had the same vocalist from what I can see, who is Asger Mygins. Yeah, from 2006 to present. So I really like how well he pronunciates his words. It's very clear. You can hear everything he's saying. This is nice and easy listening. I like this. From experience, these are tracks that tend to kind of grow on me a little bit. Like, it is quite easy listening because I spend so much time on public transport, and a lot of the time if I'm like coming home, I want to, you know, just listen to something that is still like metal music along these lines, but not like massively overpowering, that I can still kind of relax to, I guess. I've actually changed my opinion completely to where I was before on, I think it was back in the early days when I started reacting to like the powerhouses of I suppose traditional metal, we'll call it, with like Metallica and that kind of thing. I think I remember specifically saying it because I've thought about it so many times myself, just when I've been, like I said, traveling home, and I'm going to like look for an album to drift off to, and before I put on something like really like soft pop music or something along those lines, but now I look within metal for like still a metal album, but something a little less, you know, intense. But at the same time, I've fallen asleep to like Valjarta, which to a lot of people that aren't into metal would be, you know, like, how the fuck are you falling asleep to that? I've fallen asleep to like the hypnotizing aspect of Meshuggah. So it's funny how, like, when I look back on it now, and I think I may have mentioned this on the channel before, just what I'm discussing at the moment, so forgive me if you're listening to the same speech again, but this has this kind of like, even at the end there, that outro riff is quite repetitive and it does fade out, so it just has that kind of like dreamy sound to it. Obviously the vocals are really nice in this one as well, and there's a little bit of melody in it as well, so it's just kind of like a nice journey of a track to go on. And so far, obviously, with the intro track, I really like the clean vocals. Then we have Straight as Sky as well, which is a bit of a banger, to be fair, but it's not like overpoweringly heavy where I'm kind of like, right, this is just noise in my ear. It's still very nice to listen to, and it does have that Meshuggah hypnotizing sound to it as well. So all good so far. Again, not mad at the production. I know it's from 2016, and I've been on record before for kind of hating on albums for not having the best production purely because of how much older they are, but yeah, it sounds okay. Like it's very much so listenable. L's. I like the inclusion of the bass, very prominent in the mix here. Vocals are weird as fuck. It reminds me of their I think it was these Black Claws, that single.
And a mask to fill their place. And soon they will pour the silent wine.
I'm pausing it just because overanalyzing the situation here, but obviously the vocals in the intro, very, very unique. It does remind me, because now this is kind of bringing me back. Man, I did a video with my sister on these guys years ago. Hold on. Vola, Drew, Fortune. Let me just check this real quick so I can... Head Mounted Sideways was the first track I think I've heard by these guys. That was only a year ago? Nah. It's down as a year ago on like the time, but I would say it was very close to the stage. You know, it might have been like a January upload. Let me just double check exactly when this premiered, on the 14th of February. So 2021, man, this feels like so much longer ago. So the first time I actually heard Vola was 2021, February 2021. So there's a video there for anyone who's interested. It's hearing our first time hearing a Vola Head Mounted Sideways. So that was the first time I've been introduced to Vola, and then that was kind of like the streaming days when, you know, there was lockdowns and that kind of thing. So I remember it's kind of coming back to me now, the timeline. Then I think Witness was dropped mid 2021 or something like that, because obviously that was a single off of it. But I remember there being like loads of these weird, like he almost sounds like drunk, like, or intoxicated on something, you know, in the intro to that. But then even the like almost small snippets of dissonance in the back of the mix is really nice as well. I like that because, again, I keep bringing up like the Thal and Valjarta influence in Humanity's Last Breath. I'm just such a sucker for like just small details in a mix that give it that little bit of atmosphere, give it a little bit more space, and just makes it a little bit more unique. And it just feels like there's more effort put into it than just like, you know, drums, guitar, and, you know, I suppose vocals on top of it. So again, the bass is quite cool as well. It was kind of weird tone to the bass. So there was a lot of weird elements going on in this track. So let me just bring it back to where he was sounded like it just, I'm getting visions of like someone stumbling drunk down the road, the way the vocals are being delivered here, which is quite, again, it's very unique. And again, to go back to the production, I think bass generally gets lost in a lot of the albums that I refer to that I'm not too happy with the production on. But this bass is obviously prominent. It just fills up the track a bit more. Like just this breaks it up a little bit. I like this. A melody. This sounds very prog. Even like the way his vocals are changing. The cadence is like up and down. It's like guessing where it's gonna go. Yeah, this is... I was questioning whether or not Vola would fall into that prog category, but even a track like this really highlights it. And the piano as well. Wasn't expecting this. That's really nice. Again, kind of like nice to listen to. Not overpowering. The guitar isn't just there for the sake of it. It feels like it's, you know, it's not just trying to be metal. It's trying to create good music and the guitar happens to be involved in it, you know? It just has a bit more impact. Honestly, this is a lot less heavy than I was expecting it to be. Again, from the songs I've heard on Witness, it was probably 50-50, like heavy. But I just for some reason figured, because I'd only heard one track off this album being Straight as Skies, I thought that maybe this was like that album, say similar to like Bad Omens, older stuff that's a little bit heavier, and then they've kind of pushed into this new direction, as do a lot of bands. You know, Bring Me the Horizon started quite heavy and have moved into more like a I suppose less vocal intensive role for the vocalist, and then obviously with the production they've gone towards a more modern sound. So I kind of figured that would be similar to this, but this does feel like quite it feels less metal and more like kind of experimental rock prog. Take it back. Never mind. kind of has that the contortionist language feel to it. I like uplifting, euphoric sound. That chord progression is nice. Like throw in some dubstep in the middle of that. Like, what was going on there? Yeah, boy. All right, I like that track. Now, I just wanted to pose the question to people. Now, I know there's a technical term that you can look up for what defines prog music, but I think it's quite it can also be a little bit subjective as well, because there's so many bands that, you know, play the fine line between like metalcore, deathcore, prog. Like, there's so many infusions of different genres that go into so many of the bands that I listen to and have listened to over the past few years. And I want to know in the comments, just off whim here, like, what is it, or is there any specific elements of a track or an album that you would think or would define, you know, what prog music is to you? Because I kind of just thought about it there, because obviously it was going through my mind. Vola was included in the prog poll, and I was thinking, based on some of the tracks I've heard, I was like, it's very similar to a lot of the metalcore music I've listened to not so much structure wise, but I think just overall sound. Like obviously there's a melody in there. I know melody isn't exclusive to like metalcore and that kind of thing, but it just does kind of rub me as like, it's not that it's not like they feel like a metalcore band, but they don't feel like a traditional prog band that I'm used to, which is again why there's just so many different mixes. But what I did want to add as my own kind of feel on it, I was thinking there, I was like, well, what is actually making this a little bit different to some of the metalcore tracks? And what Vola have done in some of the songs, which I've already heard of Witness, and from what I've noticed, especially on this track, but they have done it on previous songs of this album as well, the intro to this track, they let it breathe for like a good, like I think the intro was like a minute or so of just instrumentals, which is like, it just allows for the track to breathe. Nothing feels forced. And when they do pull off a riff like that at the end and throughout the kind of middle of it, I think it just can hit a little bit harder than some metalcore riffs, because I know a lot of metalcore, and this is why I love kind of going back, you know, back and forth between the two on the Patreon polls and obviously the videos that we upload here. I do like one metalcore album, one prog album, is because you kind of feel the differences, and sometimes metalcore can feel like it's rushing through a track. Like it's like 3 minutes long and it's like, right, as soon as the track starts, and I love Currents and everything, but like for example with their last two singles, The Debt We Seek, like the second they start on that track, it's just instantly like it's so heavy the second it starts, and sometimes it just doesn't, it can feel a little bit rushed. And then with their most recent single, I think it was Vengeance, again, pretty cool tracks. The Debt We Seek is an amazing track. Vengeance, although I did lose my mind to it on first listen, I haven't really gone back to it enough. It just feels a little bit forced, to be honest, now that I've listened to it a few times. Obviously it's so heavy and it's like a reaction track. Like it is heavy and it's good when you listen to it first time, but overall replay value for me, it's not really got that, in my personal opinion anyway. But going off topic a little bit, obviously I say all that to come back to the prog point. So make sure you leave any like small elements of music that you listen out for to be like, oh, that's a real prog sound, because I know there is technical definition, so I don't want to just see people copying and pasting it from Google. I've seen it before myself. I know it's like, obviously from what I've seen before from a technical standpoint, one of the main things that stuck out to me that really clicked was it's very hard to kind of, one, find a time signature in prog, and two, the overall structure of the song isn't like your traditional, like, you know, bridge, whatever, like, you know, verse, chorus, verse, breakdown, or bridge, breakdown, and then, you know, chorus to finish it off. It like changes and switches up the traditional structure of a song. So that is obviously the more technical definition of what prog is, but so many bands, you know, blur those lines with metalcore. Like we have like bands like Invent Animate, which do so much fucking crazy shit, which are kind of like prog metalcore. So there's so many, like I said, I'm beating a dead horse here, you know what I'm trying to say. But let me know in the comments, guys, have a think about that one, and let's go into the next track, which is Emily, which I'm guessing is going to be like an interlude, a 3-minute long interlude. Like even the interludes in prog are like 3 minutes long. What is happening to my ears right now? Oh, this is nice. And again, it's like a relaxing sound. Although there is big dirty riffs in this, it just feels like a nice chill album, to be honest. That's how heavy my music taste has gotten recently. This is now becoming chill to me, which is just like, the old me would have been like, Drew, what are you on about? But that's honestly just how it's gone. And from experience, I always really like these interlude tracks. They always end up being my favorite tracks.
Cause I won't be able to sleep. You are my last gravity. But you are the least outspoken. In a way,
Okay, interesting points that I'm reading here, because I was kind of interested in the lyrical content of the track that we just listened to, Emily. But I kind of just stumbled across what looks like an interview with the lead singer, Mindgid. I know that's his, I don't know if it's his first name, I can't remember, but the lead singer of Vola. So again, this is mirroring a lot of what I've kind of already said, but this is what it says from the excerpt I'm reading from an interview from alreadyheard.com. So aside from their lyrical approach, it's this album's less metal moments, like the fully electronic track, which is what we just heard, Emily, that truly stand out, helping Vola to move even further from their peers. While many bands of this ilk are far more tokenistic in their use of ambient sonics, Vola's understanding feels far deeper and more cohesive. This willingness to push their genre's boundaries beyond what has become, or what has come before, suggests that the band desire to carve their own path in a way that echoes the Deftones at the turn of the century, leaving their new metal roots behind to become something completely unique, a sentiment that Mygend further alludes to. I see Vola as partly belonging to this scene, but I do believe that we also have elements in our sound that exist closer to the mainstream. I like how a band like Deftones have carved out a space for themselves in rock, where there is room for experimentation and heavy riffs, while still being able to perform for big crowds. They've always kept their integrity, in my opinion, and have had people come to them instead of the other way around. So that is the lead singer of Vola speaking on this track in particular, and obviously going on to their overall sound. So yeah, I totally agree with him in the sense that it is sticking to that genty prog kind of whatever sound from a metal standpoint that you want to talk about, but it is obviously it's not the most unique in terms of, like, there's bands that do implement this sound altogether. I would say the most unique elements to me are the vocal delivery. He has a very like prog vocalist delivery to his melody. The hasn't been as many harsh vocal moments in it, which I'm not mad at all, to be honest. I know there is quite a few from what I remember in the tracks that I've heard off of Witness, but yeah, I think he's kind of nailed it there. Like, I mean, Deftones being an example, Deftones gets thrown around a lot. Anytime a band does anything experimental at all, or kind of like that slow, sexy sound, Deftones are always getting included, which is kind of just like cliche at this point. But it's not Deftones to me. Like, it doesn't sound like Deftones at all. I would say Thornhill's latest album is more so trying to, I don't want to say rip Deftones, but that would sound more from a production standpoint closer to Deftones, whereas this is more like an overall uniqueness or a blending of the two genres. That's where Deftones comparisons can come in. So I'd say this is more like a unique approach. This sounds more unique than something like what Thornhill have done on their latest album. And I'm not trying to shit on Thornhill, because what I was trying to say earlier as well, while I was kind of listening to this, is that I've actually found that a lot of albums, I end up liking the interlude songs. I don't know if this is considered like an interlude. It's still 3 minutes long, and like it, I don't know. But to me, it just kind of sounds like a breakup song. You know, it's at the end of an album, or the kind of three-quarter way part of an album, where it kind of gives a bit of a break, and then it continues on to finish off. So, continues on to finish off. That sounds mental. But anyway, so the interlude song, we'll call it, off of Heroin, which is Thornhill's latest album. I think it's called Something Terrible Came with the Rain. That's probably my favorite song that I've actually taken out of that album. It's so good. There's no vocals in it at all. I know there's vocals in this one, but it's just such a like magical musical experience. I've sent it on to my friend. He's fucking loved it. He's not a metalhead. Again, it's not metal, so to speak, but it's just funny how they can put so much effort into a full album that is, you know, based around the sound that they have come up from, being like this metal sound. And the production, to me, kind of let that album down to a certain extent. Again, there's some tracks off it that are really cool, but it's just funny how the one track that's like, I don't know how much effort's put into it, but it just it's the only track on that album that really made me feel like it was like a magical musical experience. So yeah, again, really like the this track on this album. I don't want to go too far off of comparing to different albums and that kind of thing, because sometimes I just keep rambling. So apologies for that, lads, but that is the nature of these long form videos. So we're moving into Gutter Moon. But yeah, I enjoyed that track. Again, fully electronic track. No use of metal instrumentals. So always unique to get that. But again, nice relaxing feel to this album. I could see myself listening to this album to chill out. Again, it just feels unique, like the way the piano's following his vocals. See, this to me is like a really prog sound. It just kind of like drops out of something and just starts building again. Yeah, really prog cadence and vocal delivery to me. It's like an almost sci-fi sound the way they're using these synths. I've heard that a few times on the album, kind of giving me like a sci-fi vibe in space. Actually, the song is called Gutter Moon, so I mean, moon, sci-fi, I guess. But overall, not my favorite track on the album. I may have heard this track as well. I'm 99% certain I've heard this one. I think it might be in my my old school streaming playlists. So this was probably suggested in around the same time as well. Yeah, I remember this one. The name didn't seem familiar, but as soon as the groove came in, as soon as I heard the intro, and again, like another 40 seconds in, just pure riffs, letting the track breathe. just reminds me of Between the Bird and Me. That like almost psycho carnival sound. Reminds me like serial killer music or some shit. Between the Bird and Me, anyone? That kind of vibe? Great song. Interesting to hear how they've run with this sound, because again, this is another example of an album that I've come from listening to bits of Witness and now going back in time, so you can hear like the step up or the elements that they've really leaned into in Witness, especially in that melody, man. They've got a lot of really melodic tracks with like Straight Lines was on repeat for fucking months with me.
To feed the creatures, those who will attend. Everything in detail, every inch pristine. In this temple.
Sounds kind of like a 90s dance feel to it.
You and I come clean.
Kind of like trance, uplifting.
Words are contradictions. Words are obsolete. We have fed the creatures. Those we never meet. Is this just a slumber? Are we just asleep? Wake me in the fire. That is where they keep. Tell me now, alliance, tell me how to see your fortune here. Show me how.
Again, that like EDM chord progression. Diddle 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 diddle.
Tell me now everything, 'cause I want everything. This is not a remedy. This is not a part of my home. Just leave me alone.
Again, bass really prominent. Production, again, can't fault it. prog side is really showing in this album. Because like I said, I was a little bit unsure like if prog was really something that defined these guys, but it's really like prominent in this album. Kind of gives me a little bit of Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson sounds. Kind of getting that vibe off it in certain elements of his vocal delivery. Yeah, this is Steven Wilson, like really. Yeah, that sounds like him. I really like how full of a musical experience this is. It's not just like I said it earlier on in the video. The guitar doesn't feel like, it's not like they are seeing themselves as a metal band and they need to include guitar. They're using it sparingly. And it feels more about just creating good music. Again, I'm getting Between the Buried and Me vibes.
Lightning strike. I saw bodies moving. I took off the fight into valleys glooming.
They kept that like alarm effect for 2.5 minutes. And we had 3 different segments. It was like the intro, there was the guitars, and then there was the weird vocal segment, and they just continuously kept that for 2.5 minutes. Which is really strange. Because Initially, I thought I was going insane. It felt like it was like two different sounds. The alarm in one ear, and then it sounded really cool with the guitars, and then it just sounded really eerie with the vocals. So again, this is Prog. Prog written all over this. This is the last track, by the way, and obviously the title track. Look at me, I am a fucking Prog snob. Harry Potter reacts to Vola Inmazes. I'm just missing a little scar here. Where's my 7 string? Let me get the 7 string. Prog snob reacts to Vola Inmazes. So that's where the term comes from. Why are you still trapped in mazes, you design? Bit of wordplay on that. Why are you still... Even the way he's like delivering that is so unique. Now why are you still trapped in mazes you design? That's pretty cool. That's a nice uplifting feel to the album, to outro it. And this overall sound is a good reflection of what I kind of see this album as from like a grander perspective and not just single by single. It feels like an uplifting, proggy album that I can relax to, that has some banger tracks like Stray the Skies and A Stare Without Eyes, which funnily enough were the 2 tracks that I've heard before for obvious reason, because people were suggesting them, are like, this slaps, listen to it. But every other track on the album, I would say, just fits the overall vibe nicely. Nothing too crazy, some cool moments. But I'm kind of getting goosebumps listening to this outro. Sound is very unique. Maybe I could do a reaction to Witness, because let me actually just see which tracks I've heard off of Witness. This. So I've heard Straight Lines, I've heard Head Mounted Sideways, I've heard These Black Claws, I've heard Stone Leader Falling Down, and Inside Your Fur I'm pretty sure is like a massive Deftones shout out, just based on the fact, 1, the name, and 2, I think I remember listening to that before and being like, this sounds like Deftones, and I seen the name and I was like, this is clearly paying homage to Deftones. But that was not a bad album, lads, to be honest. I was coming in a little bit skeptical after seeing the comments saying that the production might be a little bit disappointing to me, but I honestly didn't, like, it wasn't enough for me to even think what's wrong with the production here. Again, that can be partly to do with the fact that maybe I haven't listened to anything off Witness in, you know, quite some time, so there's no real comparison there, which is sometimes good. Again, what happens a lot with me and these videos is that I tend to react to bands, their latest album that's come up, because obviously I've not really been in the scene for too long in terms of a lot of the bands that get suggested from you guys, which I happen to love. So I tend to react to the first album or the most recent album from the band and then work backwards people have suggested, like, Drew, why not try and start from the beginning of a discography? And I agree, in an ideal world, that's how we would do it. But unfortunately, it's not really how it works in terms of, like, for example, first impressions on a band, I always speak about this, is very important for me. Sometimes listening to a band on a first impression and the band isn't great can put me off actually going back to the band. So a lot of the time when albums are suggested, you know, like their initial work, like for example, if I was to have started with Opiate by Tool, which is actually the album that we have beside Meshuggah's Immutable there in the middle, if you see the album all the way back here on the bottom, that is Opiate by Tool. And I wouldn't have normally picked that album, to be honest. It was my sister got it for me for a Christmas present recently. She didn't know anything. She just kind of said, like, let's go into the record shop and which bands did Tool like? And she remembered that I liked Tool back in the day. Still love Tool, but the point being is that album, if I had heard that album like first from Tool, I probably would have said, not for me, I'm done. However, I started the opposite way with Fear Inoculum, their most recent album, and worked back, and I could just appreciate hearing their sound from like a backwards perspective. So it does obviously add a cool element, because a lot of you guys who suggest this music, obviously being fans for years, heard it in chronological order. So from their first album all the way through to their most recent work. So some people say, like, Drew, you need to start listening to these bands in order. Some people like the fact that I do it this way. So it's always a tough one. But the production on this one was fine. But obviously, like I said, and what I was alluding to there was the fact that I've had certain albums, Northlane, for example, where I've listened to Obsidian, where the production is so crisp and it's so new. And then I've gone back. Alien was similar, but it wasn't as well produced and didn't have as many electronic sounds. Obviously, the sounds started to spawn from Alien that the Northlane are so known for now. But before that, Singularity, I just couldn't get into because of the production on it. And again, I need to go back and check that one out again, because some people said on my most recent video, the, you know, rounding up the albums that I heard in 2022. Go check that one out if you haven't already. People said you need to go back and give Singularity a go. And I also kind of agree with them, just because a lot of people fuck with that album a lot, and they understand that, yes, the production isn't as good, but they're still fucking with it. So again, it's all perspectives, lads. It's all different opinions. So yeah, that album to me is probably like an 8 out of 10. I don't think it done enough to like really wow me. There was some, like, I think overall it's a nice album to listen to. Like I said, I love having a good album to kind of listen to in full while I travel. So that one to me is probably like a nice album to throw on. Maybe some of the singles off it I can kind of listen to and chill out. But overall, not my favorite. I think an 8, like a high 7, is probably a good marker for that album. Again, not a bad score at all. I do want to kind of revamp the way in which I mark albums, because like I'm giving albums like really high 9s, when like high 9s is like getting into S tier territory. And you guys obviously seen from the most recent video again that I put some albums in S tier, and there was like 6 albums I think in S tier, which is like the best albums possible in my opinion. And then like there was albums that were in the A tier, which is obviously a step down from S, that weren't even like the top of A, and I would have given them like 9.5s, 9.6s throughout the year. Again, it's just a random rating system. It's quite hard to actually quantify why I'm giving them a rating, but I do need to maybe peel back how high I'm rating albums, because it makes it very hard when it comes to the end of the year, which I've just discovered recently, to actually figure out how I'm going to decide which albums are the best, because my album rankings throughout the year don't make sense. Because if it's a 9.6 album or a 9.7 album, how is it not S tier? So yeah, not a big deal at the end of the day. But if you guys have any other way of quantifying, you know, or even deciding how I rate an album at the end, even if it's a better way than just rating it, because like a number is quite, like, it can change. It's my first listen. It's hard to really like know. Like Mastodon Under Vatten is like one of them albums that obviously really like was insane, but there's so much depth in that album that like to even rate it out of 10 on a first listen is almost, it's nonsensical. So yeah guys, I'm gonna shut up talking. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please, I'm stuttering and I hit my keyboard, please, if you're liking this video, make sure you're sub to the channel. Patreon.com/DrewFortune if you do want to support the channel, be much appreciated, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm signing out. Looking forward to a big year of more albums, and I can't wait already for the 2023 roundup. We're going to make it even better than 2022. Guys, thank you so much. I'm signing out. See you later. Cheers.